My name's Anthony Sinclair. I'm a director of GNS Group. We're primarily a financial planning and advisory business, and one of our areas that we specialise in is self-managed superannuation funds. So today you're going to hear about me talking about the ideal benefits of having a self-managed super fund, the tax advantages, and also the estate planning advantages of having a self-managed super fund.
Our guest speaker for this morning, if you haven't worked it out, is Mr. Anthony Sinclair. Anthony is from the GNS Group, and his profession is a financial planner. You can find Anthony and GNS Group located at 235 Lower Heidelberg Road, Ivanhoe East, Victoria, 3079. Anthony's been in business for 11 years, and his previous types of jobs and roles has been in accountants and accounts receivable. With the personal information about Anthony, his wife is Kim Sinclair. They only have, well, it says only one furry little child here, but it also goes on to say that it's a beautiful black, and this is what Anthony's wrote, Labradoodle. Is that?
That's great.
There we go.
I didn't make it up.
That's fine. And the dog's name is Coco. Anthony enjoys sports of all varieties, both in participating and as a spectator. Anthony's burning desire is to have a year of doing nothing so that he can just think about life and stuff. If he wasn't doing what he's doing now, he would be bored. Something nobody knows about Anthony is he recently presented part of a workshop at the Count Financial Conference in New Zealand, and he claims that there is no way he would have done that in the past without being a member of the BNI Carlin and gaining confidence in public speaking. So I think that's great. And that's what
Thank you, Steve, and thank you to everybody. As Steve said, I am Anthony, and I am the Director of GNS Group Financial Planning. I'm going to hand around a few things today. I'm talking about self-managed superannuation funds, and this is one of the big growth areas in my industry in particular, and I think the real reason for that is that there's a lot of financial benefits to be had by not only people that have got significant amounts of money, but small business owners, and we're all small business owners, so this is an ideal topic for everyone to pay attention to. So, a couple of things I just want to run through today. Got a little legal disclaimer to start with. So, just in terms of what a self-managed super fund actually is, why they're appropriate for you and your circumstances, and also your friends and colleagues as well. And also, I'm going to run through a bit of a case study as well, just to show you some of the real benefits of having a self-managed superannuation fund. Self-managed super funds started quite some time ago, about 25, 30 years ago. Very slow initial take-up rate, but now things have certainly been going at full steam ahead. There is over $420 billion in the self-managed super fund area. Just to give you an example, that's the equivalent of 3 times the size of BHP. So it's a massive amount of money. 425,000 members, 425,000 super funds, growing at around about 8,000 a month. And also there's 810,000 members in Australia. So if you divide that into the $420 billion, they're usually large dollar amounts per member, which is a lot larger than what the average person retires on. I think part of that is because you have much more control and sort of influence over the investments that you are making within your self-managed super fund, and you really drive it to get some great returns for your retirement. As a little side adjustment, the average person retires at age 65 with less than $75,000 in super. That's not going to last too long in retirement. So if you don't want to live on the age pension, you need to do something about it. One of the real reasons why self-managed super funds in particular have been growing, and this has been particularly so over the last, say, 3 years, is through the global financial crisis. People want to get control over the money that they've got invested. They don't want to trust it to somebody that they haven't met, that's a fund manager sitting in New York or London, they have no contact or association with. They want to get some personalised advice and have something that's really going to work for them. Increased investment options. You can have direct shares in your self-managed super fund. Property investments as well. You can do alternative things as well, which I probably tend to suggest people don't do, but they are available. We're also importantly allowed to borrow now inside superannuation, and I know that Leanne can organise self-managed super fund loans. So this is where you can particularly go out and buy, say, a residential property or your own business premises, have that owned inside your superannuation fund. But the important part is to make sure that you get professional advice, and the strategies that I have available do actually work. Self-managed super funds are also great for planning for the whole family. You can have up to 4 members of a self-managed super fund. So it could be mum, dad and the 2 kids. The benefit of having all 4 people in a super fund, they all get to share in the benefit of lower fees, more control over the investments. And from the parents' point of view, they're going to be getting into some significant wealth in the future as their parents die. And so we start to see baby boomers inheriting money at the moment. In turn, that's going to be left to the next generation. So it's important to make sure that their children have some financial literacy. So this is a great way that they can start off by getting a bit of a feel about the share market and property market, is by taking a bit more control and active influence over their superannuation. Investment choice. I think this is probably the greatest aspect of self-managed super funds. Things that you can get into that you can't normally do otherwise. So things such as direct shares. You can go and buy any share on the Australian share market. International share market for the same matter. Property. Being able to own a house in there. People sometimes like the feel of bricks and mortar. They don't like the idea of shares. Self-managed super funds give you that ability. Alternative investments. I actually have one client who has money in gold bullion. They literally have the gold bars sitting in a safety deposit box in Collins Street at the bank, but they actually have gold. They're too afraid to have money invested in the share market and property, so they just want to hedge their bets and go on gold. So you can do that with your self-managed super fund. I think one of the real benefits though is allowing your business premises to be purchased by your self-managed super fund. I don't know about you, but I hate writing out the cheque every month and sending it off to the landlord. I don't get anything in return for it other than a nice building to stay in. Wouldn't it be great if you're actually writing that cheque out to yourself and have that money going into your self-managed super fund where it's concessionally taxed? And as I'll go through in a little bit later on, you can actually get that property in there and perhaps not pay any tax getting it in there and no tax when you sell it. Superannuation has a set of rules, and the same rules apply to a public super fund as what they do to a self-managed super fund. You pay a maximum rate of 15% on your income, and generally you won't pay more than 10% in terms of capital gains tax. Personally, I don't think you can get a better rate than paying 10% capital gains tax and 15% on your income. We all pay that more just by what we do in our working life. When you move into pension phase and you stop contributing to super and you start to pull that money out to actually fund your retirement, you can actually move all those assets into that pension fund and you don't pay any capital gains tax to do so. And this is the best part. The moment you start to draw that pension, you pay 0 tax. No income tax, no capital gains tax. What more do you want? Why set up a self-managed super fund? Well, they're cost effective. The rough rule of thumb within my industry is that you need around $200,000 to make it economically viable. And roughly speaking, it costs around about $2,000 a year to maintain a self-managed super fund. Depends on the number of transactions, but that's a rough ballpark. So that works out to around about 1% as an actual administration cost. That compares very favourably with industry super funds and even more particularly with retail super funds, which will charge anywhere between 1 and 2.5%. So having around that 200 grand is a sort of a nice break-even point. Now that's not to say that you can't go into a self-managed fund with less than that. A couple of reasons why you may do that. You're going to make significant contributions in the next couple of years, so you quickly get to that $200,000 hurdle, and you want to have the flexibility and enjoyment and control of those investments today. The other thing is you might want to just take control over your future and your destiny and make sure that you've got investments there that are appropriate for yourself. So you might only have 100 grand in super, but you want to go out and buy a house. You can't do that without setting up a self-managed super fund. And as I said earlier on, you're allowed to have up to 4 members inside a self-managed super fund. So think of this in terms of a family situation. You don't have to do it just in isolation. The sense of control over your investments and your retirement destiny. These are, I think, are the important things that people sort of need to really be taking particular attention and focus on. And don't want to leave it go until you're 55 and say, I'm retiring in 5 minutes, and you go, oh, geez, I've got no money. What am I going to do for the next 30 years of my life? Average life expectancy is over 85. Medical science is improving all the time. People are going to live longer. You need to have more and more money there. And so the best time to start is today. As I said, the global financial crisis has led to a lot of people not being happy with the performance of their funds. I know that over the last few years, I've got clients every week that have said to me, why am I paying fees to a fund manager and my money's going backwards? That doesn't seem fair. They're still making money and I'm not. Well, unfortunately, that's just part of the investment cycle, that you need to remain fully invested because things do change very quickly, and making sure that you are invested does come at a cost. But with a self-managed super fund, you're in control of what that cost actually is. You determine when you want to invest, how much you want to invest, and more importantly, how much you want to pay. But I think the bottom line is the most important part. Do you want to eliminate your tax? And a self-managed super fund can give you great sort of tax control. Just want to go through a bit of a case study, and this is a typical situation that I experience with clients on a very regular basis. So George and Laura are both self-employed people, early to mid-50s, and they're planning to retire at age 65. 2 adult children, Lisa and Mark. And because they are self-employed and they have their own little factory, they own that currently through their family trust, and that's one of the things that they're wanting to look at in terms of their retirement plans, that I'll always sell my factory. But I've got a couple of other options in terms of setting up a self-managed super fund for them. So what do? We go through the process, establish the self-managed fund, we roll over their existing super into the bank account of the self-managed super fund. The business continues to make their contributions, claiming that as a tax deduction through their business and making some extra lump sum payments into the self-managed fund. The 2 adult children, Lisa and Mark, they also roll over their money into the super fund, so all 4 members of the family have joined the fund. Their future employer contributions continue to get paid in there as well. George and Laura are worried about the financial security for their children. They're both, got young families and a mortgage, and so they've got debt up to their eyeballs, so they want to make sure they've got the right amount of insurance in place. So taking out some death and total and permanent disability insurance is really important, and more importantly, is actually available through a self-managed fund, and it can be claimed as a tax deduction. If you pay those insurances yourself, you don't get any tax benefit from that. So what do George and Laura do? Well, they take the advice of their advisor. They transfer the factory into their self-managed super fund. Through understanding all of the capital gains concessions available to a small business owner, they don't pay any capital gains tax, and then they don't pay any stamp duty. One of the benefits of having property in Victoria, in certain situations, you can actually get an exemption rolling your business premises into a self-managed super fund. And then the remaining money that they've got in super, which is basically come from their existing super fund, which they contributed in as cash rollovers. What do they do with that? They want to have a balanced and portfolio of investments, so they go and take out some good quality blue chip shares. So we're thinking of things like Commonwealth Bank, Woolworths, BHP, Telstra. Whenever I say Telstra, people turn their nose up at it. Telstra is a fantastic investment in a super fund, a 14% dividend. It's not many things you can get better than a 14% dividend. Forget what happens to the share price. That 14% dividend is golden in a super fund. So do things like that. Term deposits. You don't have to be sophisticated to go and open up a Commonwealth Bank or an ANZ Bank term deposit. Something nice, simple, secure. You're not paying any fees on it. That's how a self-managed super fund can really give you some benefits. So the super fund looks something like this today. They've contributed the $500,000 factory that they run their business in. So that's gone in as a contribution. The rollover of their existing money has gone and bought those blue chip shares of a bit over 200 grand. They've got 100,000 in term deposits and they've got 30 grand sitting in cash. Let's just then start to fast forward to when they get to retirement age. They've continued to make their employer contributions through the business, plus those investments have grown in value. By the time they get to age 65, the property is now worth $1.2 million. Those shares have grown to $980,000. They've added extra term deposits along the way and kept reinvesting the interest. That's now up to $450,000 and there's $70,000 in cash. The total value of the family super fund is $2.7 million. Now, go back years ago, people used to say, I'm going to retire, take all my money out of super, and that's going to be my, my nest egg, my golden retirement, holiday, whatever it may be. You don't sell all your money and then just take it as a lump sum. You take it as a pension. And the reason for doing that is that if you sell those investments the day before you retire, that super fund's going to write out a cheque to the tax office of $110,000 in capital gains tax. Don't know about you, but I don't like the idea of writing out a cheque for 100 grand. Especially if it's not to myself. So you sell those investments the day after you retire or any point in the future after you've retired, you'll pay no tax. Straight away, by getting some good professional advice and getting the timing right that you can achieve with having a self-managed super fund, because you're in control of everything, you can actually avoid paying any capital gains tax. The other thing then is that all the future rent, the bank interest, those dividends, also come into the super fund completely tax-free, which allows you to put that money in as investment earnings tax-free, and then you can pull that out as your pension tax-free. What more do people want? Tax-free investments, tax-free pensions. But take that strategy even further again, and this is something that you can do when you've got your children inside the super fund. Mark now decides he wants to get involved in the business. He's going to take over mum and dad's interest. They don't want to necessarily sell the factory. The factory is an integral part to the business. Everyone's known that the business has been there for the last 25 years. They don't want to up and move just because mum and dad are retiring. So what happens? Over time, Mark's new business now makes contributions into the super fund. And then what that allows to do is to transition those investments from being mum and dad's investments primarily across to the next generation. So start to think of self-managed super funds as intergenerational wealth transfer. So you can actually take your current investments, never sell them, and migrate them to the next generation. You think of all the old world money in Australia. So you think of something like the Meyer family, the Pratt family. That's what they do. They never sell anything. They keep hold of it and they pass it from one generation to the next. And the reason they can do that, they've got those investments not owned personally, they've got them owned through a structure, and you can't get a better tax structure than a self-managed superannuation fund. So, just in summary, self-managed super funds offer many advantages. Control over the investments, direct shares, property, borrowing to invest, estate planning, tax minimisation, and more importantly, timing of the tax, and a fee reduction as well. GNS Group can assist with all of these administration needs and the financial planning aspect of the investments. We've got 4 highly trained staff members who focus solely on advising self-managed super fund clients. Self-managed super fund clients make up a very large portion of my business, and the reason for that is I'm very passionate about the benefits that everyone can get from having one. There are tips that you need to make the most of it, and there's also traps that you need to avoid. But that's where having professional advice and people that understand what you can and can't do will keep you out of trouble. So just before I throw it over to if anyone's got any questions, just like to take the TV advertisement and compare the pair. What industry super fund allows you to choose your own individual investments? Allows you to borrow, allows you to time the taxation treatment of things, allows you to avoid taxation and reduce your fees. So there's always choices in life, and I think a self-managed super fund is a wise choice for most people. So thank you, and if anyone's got any questions, please ask me. Thank you. Leanne.
What happens if you have 3 children?
3 children, unfortunately somebody misses out. You can only have 4 members. It's always been the rule that you can only have 4 members. There's no talk at the moment of increasing that limit. The strategy that we've employed in the past is that at that stage you actually keep just mum and dad in the super fund together, leave the children out of it. At the time of mum or dad, one of them dying, then bring the 3 children in. That way everyone's treated fairly. Because otherwise you put in, say, the 2 oldest, the 2 youngest, the 2 that aren't married, one's married. There's too many complications involved. So I think it's better and fairer for the children to keep them all out of the fund, and at some future point when one of the parents unfortunately does die, then bring the children in. And the other thing is that there will be a surviving spouse. So they may need some assistance with their investments and looking after their wealth. So bringing in all the children then will just get some good support around mum or dad, whoever's left.
Why was it just 4?
It's always been the rule. I suppose it comes back to just perhaps demographics 30 years ago. Average family had 2.3 kids or whatever it was. Probably even less than that now. Unfortunately, we're still stuck with the same rules. That's one of the things they haven't improved. Steve.
I know the government and the legislation is always quite short term. Is there any chance that they can change that tax rules by the time, say, Dave and I get to 65, they're going to say, oh, guess what, guys, 150% tax?
I can put my hand on my heart and promise you that the superannuation rules will definitely change before you and I retire. Because they change every bloody year, unfortunately.
But as far as those tax, because if you spend 5 or 6 years working at an angle to set yourself up a self-managed super fund and it changes, there's
I always take two approaches to that. The rules will always change. So just accept that they change and change with them. And what might be a good suitable strategy one day may not work the next. So superannuation can't be your only investment option, but it certainly should be an important part. The other thing is the changes they keep making to superannuation have always been to improve and make superannuation more attractive. The government wants you to save for your retirement. So they keep encouraging people to get these tax-free benefits by putting money away for themselves. So I think from that policy angle, they need to be able to continue to offer incentives to invest inside superannuation. I suppose the other part is that if they do keep changing the rules, the politicians have got a lot more money in super than what you and I have. They're not going to do something from a self-interest point of view that's going to significantly jeopardise their own financial future. So I think having a bit of self-interest sometimes goes a long way when it talks to politicians and their motives about superannuation legislation. So yes, the rules will change. They probably start taxing people at some point, but you just change with the rules as they adopt.
The other thing is they don't usually make them retrospective, so what you've already got in there is sort of protected in a way with the existing rules type of thing, do they?
I mean, one of the things is that you pay no tax in pension mode. So once you do retire, you don't pay any further tax. Let's say that they abolish that completely, which would be a dramatic shift. That rule about not paying tax once you've retired has always been there. It's not a new change. It's been around for the last 30 years. But let's say they abolish that, and that'd be a radical movement. But if they did that, what's going to happen? You'll pay 10% capital gains tax, 15% income tax. It's still not really the end of the world. Sure, you are suddenly paying more tax than what you would have otherwise, but as long as if you're going to be taxed at 46.5%. So I think that there's still certainly a lot of positives from the self-managed super fund and the super fund industry in particular, but I think there's a lot more benefits than what there are negatives. Trish?
In terms of maintenance, once you have it established, would you meet with your financial advisor quarterly, 6 monthly, yearly to have a look at your investments and how things are tracking, or do you totally do that on your own? Or
that's personal choice because you're in control of the money, so you control how often you have reviews and how much you're paying as well. So I have some clients that I meet with monthly because we've got a very active share portfolio that we're constantly changing, and so we meet monthly, therefore their financial planning costs are higher. I've got some people we meet 6 monthly, 12 monthly, every couple of years, not at all. Some people say, I'm happy to listen to David Koch and take his tips out of the paper. Good luck to you, but people do things like that. So they don't pay any fees to a financial advisor. But I think most people get great advice from at least having an annual review. A 12-monthly review, if you've got a good quality portfolio of some shares in there, they shouldn't change too much. You know the Commonwealth Bank has been around for the last 100 years, they'll be around for another 100 years. So if the share price goes from $50 to $40 and back to $43, doesn't really matter. You're still comfortable owning those shares because you're comfortable with that bank and that the history and the legacy and the dividend that they keep paying. The dividend is probably more important with shares than what the actual share price is. So it really depends on each situation. Other people might say, I'm only going to have property in my super fund. There's not a lot of active investment advice that a financial planner can give after that. Because one property, sure, we can look at having another property down the track once they've saved up enough money for a deposit and they can go and see Leanne about another mortgage. But until then, yeah, it really depends on each individual circumstance. Darren?
As far as borrowing against a self-managed super fund, I know there's stricter rules that are getting a loan elsewhere, but what's the maximum that you can borrow if you want to go and buy a property within a fund? Depends
on how you want to structure the loan. Potentially you can borrow 100%. So generally a bank, depending on the type of property you're buying, and also whether it's residential, it's commercial, Metro Melbourne or out of the area, but that's where the advice of a mortgage broker can come in. But there's nothing to stop you from being able to borrow 100%. And I've certainly seen it with other clients where they have done that. Yeah. So thank you everybody. If anyone's got any questions or anything like that, I'm happy to organise dance cards to go through things again or one-on-one appointments. So please be on the lookout this week for people that either yourselves or some business associates or colleagues or family members that you think could get some benefits from a self-managed super fund. You know where I am. I'm Anthony Sinclair from GNS Group Financial Planning, building wealth and protecting lifestyles.
I really
enjoyed Anthony's presentation today. It was so informative. He obviously knows so much about the topic, self-managed super funds, and he is passionate about people creating wealth for their retirement and having a good lifestyle when they're retired.
I loved Anthony's presentation, quite informative. I'm actually a client of Anthony's and I do have a self-managed super fund with his business, and yet I still managed to pick up some tips today.
GNS Group is obviously a really solid business. He has a lot of employees, and based on Anthony, he would employ people who really know what they're doing and who have that same passion for excellence that he has about the things that they're interested in, which is money and wealth and people having more than adequate funds for their retirement.
Highly professional, but still able to talk the talk with everyday you and me. Anthony's quite highly regarded. He's very professional. I know confidentiality is quite important for me, so I believe he's completely integral, and I love having my business with Anthony. He's highly professional, knows his stuff, he's an expert in his field, and he loves numbers, which I don't, so he's perfect for me.
Anthony's really energetic and he applies so much enthusiasm to everything he does. Even our BNI group, since he's taken over as president, we're growing, we're energetic, we're enthusiastic, and he has that you get that feeling of confidence and security that he knows what he's talking about, and that the things that he talks about he considers thoroughly before he actually opens his mouth and speaks about them.
Highly recommend Anthony to small businesses but also corporates. He can find a solution for both.
I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. My name is Anthony Sinclair and we're from GNS Group Financial Planning. If you'd like more information about self-managed super funds or to have a chat to myself, please either call me on 9499 7444 or visit our website at www.gnsgroup.com.au. Thank you.